A chilling discovery emerges in the depths of a Polish forest.
It's a jaw of what appears to be a child.
It's the beginning of an investigation into the crime of the 20th century. A crime that saw the disappearance of over 900,000 people, yet left little evidence and only a handful of eyewitnesses to attest to what happened here.
They laid him down and cut him up with an axe while he was still alive.
70 years later, a forensic investigator attempts to uncover the full truth about Hitler's secret extermination camp. Using state-of-the-art aerial technology, new eyewitnesses, and investigative archaeology.
It just gives you an overwhelming sense of the scale and horror. You can't even imagine how much people must have suffered here.
We follow Caroline Sturdy Colls' quest to uncover the brutal horror of the death camp at Treblinka.
Oh my God.
We reveal how the Nazis attempted to hide their crimes and journey into the dark heart of the Nazis' final solution.
Only worry I have about Caroline is how's she going to get through all of this.
Okay. Sure.
Can modern forensics reveal the secrets of the 20th century's killing machine? In this remote part of northeastern Poland, the Nazis tried to hide one of their greatest crimes. Caroline Sturdy Colls is a forensic archaeologist who specializes in modern-day crime scenes.
I work with police forces investigating murder cases and cases of missing individuals who may be buried. And it's the skills that I have learned as part of this work that I really do bring to this investigation of Treblinka.
She's been given permission to carry out the first ever excavations at Treblinka 2 in 70 years. It's a unique opportunity to unravel the workings of the Nazis' most lethal death factory. Treblinka had two camps. Treblinka 1, a forced labor camp that operated between 1941 and 1944. And the death camp, Treblinka 2, which ran from July 1942 until November 1943. The Nazis then attempted to eradicate all evidence of the camp's existence. Buildings, guard towers, and fencing were destroyed. Trees were then planted to further disguise the site. When Russian troops arrived in 1944, it was as if Treblinka 2 had never existed.
Since the 1940s, there's been this notion that Treblinka was successfully destroyed by the Nazis. The whole purpose of my investigation is actually to say, well, we haven't made that connection with the physical evidence. We haven't unearthed the evidence that can show us what the victims suffered and what the perpetrators did. And so that's why we are here.
A critical phase of the investigation is to get aerial photography of the landscape and confirm the layout of the extermination camp. Today, all that's visible is the Treblinka Memorial, built in the 1960s. A symbolic railway line and platform indicate how people arrived at Treblinka. A long black pit represents the site where the bodies of those killed were cremated. And 17,000 stones represent the villages and towns these people came from. But up until now, trees and heavy vegetation planted by the Nazis have hidden any signs of the original camp. Today, cutting-edge aerial photography called LiDAR makes it possible to see through the trees to the ground below.
What LiDAR allows us to do basically is take all the vegetation away. So if I turn that layer off, I can literally strip the trees out. So now what I'm seeing is the bare earth of Treblinka, and that's something that probably nobody's seen since the Nazis abandoned the site and before all these trees were planted around us. It's quite amazing to be able to use that new technology to see a landscape in a completely different perspective.
Today, the most potent image of the Holocaust and Adolf Hitler's final solution is the death camp at Auschwitz, which attracts over 1 million visitors a year. In Hitler's planned Third Reich, which would extend from Paris to Moscow, there would be no room for Central Europe's Jewish population. The Holocaust became the Nazis' answer to the so-called Jewish problem, and Auschwitz, its enduring symbol. But it was at Treblinka and 2 other death factories in eastern Poland that the Nazis perfected their uniquely simple technique for mass murder, killing 1.6 million people in just 24 months. Gas chambers filled with carbon monoxide generated by diesel engines were used to asphyxiate thousands of victims at a time. Yet, incredibly, no hard evidence confirming the size or location for the gas chambers has ever been found. Caroline's mission is to find physical evidence of the gas chambers at Treblinka 2. Added to existing eyewitness and written evidence, this should finally vanquish Nazi lies about Treblinka 2. The LiDAR reveals tantalizing new clues.
What's really catching my eye is this area here, which is showing a huge depression in the landscape. This is where I believe that the gas chambers are located.
Caroline needs to wait for final permission to excavate the area of the suspected gas chambers at Treblinka 2. But the LiDAR has given her plenty of new targets at the forced labor camp, Treblinka 1. 20,000 Polish resistance fighters, dissidents and Jews worked at Treblinka 1, supplying German military construction teams with gravel. It's always been believed that Treblinka 1's main purpose was to provide slave labor. But Caroline believes this camp too was a place of large-scale, systematic murder.
What I really want to show with my work is actually that Treblinka was one large landscape that comprised of the death camp, the labour camp, and at all of these places, the executions were all equally as brutal.
To the south of Treblinka 1, 10 minutes walk through the forest, the LiDAR has revealed a number of previously unknown depressions. Caroline wants to investigate these by digging some test trenches. Working with her are 3 other professional archaeologists. Kevin from the UK and Joanna from the Treblinka Museum are in the first trench. And in trench 2, Ivar from Holland. And Dean, another Brit. The team works their way down, centimetre by centimetre. 5 hours of back-breaking work, and then Ivar makes an unexpected discovery.
What have you got?
It's a jaw. Of what appears to be a child.
I just feel so angry. What could they possibly have done? You know, what could they have done as a child to the Nazis to make them want to treat them this way? It's not just bones, you know, it's a person. It's just horrible.
Convinced they have unearthed evidence of mass graves, they dig a 3rd trench.
It's not a root, is it?
I think that's a bone. Looks like a...
Yeah, it's shaped like a clavicle bone.
Yeah, another bone.
I would suggest that they were from two different individuals. This one we can see is much bigger than this one.
After 2 hours, they uncover another disturbing find. But this one's different.
It's the elbow joint.
Yeah.
A couple of marks on here. One there, one there. That's probably why a bit of the bones flaked away there.
Cut marks indicate an injury before death. To learn more about the violence of the camp, Caroline has tracked down a Polish Catholic survivor. Mieczysław Kowalczyk is a unique eyewitness to the brutality of Treblinka 1.
We came back from work one day, and everyone was lying on the ground. We were pushed to the ground as well. They'd found something on one of the men. They searched him, but he got free and threw himself down the well. The Germans ordered him out, but he refused. They lowered in a chain with a plank for him to sit on, but he refused to get out. They pleaded with him, eventually telling him that it'd be okay. Finally, he agreed to be lifted out of the well. As soon as they got him, they laid him down and cut him up with an axe while he was still alive.
After a day excavating Trench 3, the team has found 40 bones. It's now clear that they've discovered 3 previously unknown mass graves at Treblinka 1.
My feeling is that we should stop now because I think the more we're digging, the more bone we're finding. All the remains are disarticulated. We've got fragments of bone, fragments of skull, fragments of ribs. So I think the best thing to do is to reinter the remains.
Yeah, absolutely.
The presence of new mass graves and the evidence of brutality found on the victims' remains support Caroline's belief that Treblinka 1 was much more than just a labour camp.
Sure.
We found the remains of these individuals so that all of the individuals here can now be commemorated. It's something I think I'm very proud to have been part of, and I hope that, that's the legacy that this project can give to the memory of the people at Treblinka.
Their work at Treblinka 1 complete, the team heads to the death camp. They want to find the gas chambers responsible for killing over 900,000 people and hidden by the Nazis 70 years ago. Caroline Sturdy Colls and a team of archaeologists have been given unprecedented permission to excavate at Treblinka. Their mission is to investigate what happened to those who were brought here and the brutal mechanics of their murder. The bodies of the 900,000 people murdered at the death camp have never been found. There are no surviving buildings, roads, or security fencing. What we do know about Treblinka 2 comes from just a handful of eyewitnesses. One of these was Russian writer Vasily Grossman, who in 1944 pieced together the first description of the death camp.
An excavator dug a pit 250 to 300 meters long, 20 to 25 meters wide. All this constituted a gigantic grill. 2 more grill pits of the same dimensions were constructed soon afterward. Each took 3,500 to 4,000 corpses at once. People who took part in the work of burning the corpses say that these grill pits were like gigantic volcanoes. At night, people from the villages 30 or 40 kilometers away could see the flames curling around the pine forests that surrounded the camp.
There were so many ashes, the Nazis forced locals to dispose of them nearby.
Peasants from the village of Volka were ordered to load them on their carts and scatter them along the road leading from the death camp to the labor camp. Child prisoners with spades then spread the ashes more evenly. Car wheels make a peculiar swishing sound along this road, And when I was taken along it, I kept hearing a sad whisper from beneath the wheels, like a timid complaint.
Caroline meets with Michael Szydryk, the chief rabbi of Poland, to confirm that she has his support. The extermination camp is a Jewish burial site, and disturbing human remains here is forbidden.
When we get to the extermination camp, I don't want to be too invasive. I only want to dig small test pits just so I can confirm what some of the buildings are. One of the things I want to take your advice on is, obviously in the process of that, we perhaps will come across human remains.
The bones that are right on the surface, whether sometimes you can find them literally on the surface.
On the monument.
Right.
Yeah.
Should be then gathered together, and then we'll bury it somewhere afterwards.
Okay.
And then we'll have to discuss where. If you actually find a mass grave, you have to stop.
Yes, of course.
It's simple.
Okay.
And if you're not sure, call.
Ask, yeah. Okay, thank you.
It's real simple.
I mean, I hope that the research that I'm doing obviously can provide a lot of information, but,
Yes,
if we can find remains and give them a proper burial, then that's obviously clearly one of the key factors and key reasons for doing this.
When I look at a human being, as best as I can, I try to see who am I talking to. And what I see there is a very pure soul. And the only worry I have about Caroline is how's she going to get through all of this. But in terms of her doing the right thing and being committed to doing the right thing, I have absolutely no doubt.
From late 1939, SS Chief Odilo Globocnik had been concentrating Poland's Jews into a number of ghettos while waiting for Berlin's decision on the final solution. In autumn 1941, SS Commander Heinrich Himmler met in secret with Globocnik, a close confidant, and instructed him to organize the murder of Poland's 2.5 million Jews. Construction of death camps at Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka began immediately. Transportation by rail to the death camps was organized, along with the seizure of Jewish assets for the Nazi state. Operation Reinhardt, as it became known, launched the Holocaust, and Himmler ordered that it be completed within 12 months. The remaining problem was how to kill 2.5 million people so quickly. Nazi firing squads had executed around 1 million Jews and communists after the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941. However, Himmler had felt this approach was too inefficient and brutal. So he turned for help to the Nazis' secretive euthanasia program, T4. Franz Stangl, who became a commander of Treblinka II, worked for T4 in Austria and Germany. Between 1939 and 1940, 70,000 physically and mentally disabled Germans had been murdered as part of this mercy-killing program. Victims had been killed by sealing them in rooms which were then filled with carbon monoxide. Stangl had learned how to kill in large numbers at T4, and at Treblinka II, he scaled this up to an industrial level. Two sets of gas chambers were built at Treblinka. The first were able to kill 600 people in one session. But in the late summer of 1942, Stangl began work on a larger second set of gas chambers. These were designed to improve production line efficiency and kill around 5,000 people in a single 25-minute session. A geophysical survey has already revealed the outline of a 44-meter by 20-meter feature, which Caroline believes could be these new gas chambers.
In the overall story of Treblinka, the gas chambers is the absolute heart of the extermination process here. And so it's really important for me to be able to identify where the gas chambers were. It makes sense for the new gas chamber building to be located somewhere here, so I really do want to be able to find that today.
The Nazis attempted to destroy all evidence of the gas chambers when they closed Treblinka 2. On this dig, all Caroline can hope to find are overlooked clues left after the clean-up operation.
In a way, I'm nervous about the next stage. I've come up with a hypothesis about where the gas chambers may be, and so we'll just have to see what happens.
As the team digs deeper, they find no evidence of a solid structure like bricks or concrete. Then Ivar makes a startling find.
So we found a shark tooth, and I'm not joking. That's a shark tooth. So this appears to be some other fossil.
A fossilized shark's tooth would usually be 30 to 40 meters below ground. Here, it's barely 1 meter down.
We've just dug a little test pit down in ours, down the corner, and it's just sand, continuous sand.
It seems the Nazis eradicated the gas chambers by dumping sand from the quarry at Treblinka 1 over the ruins. It's a disappointment for the team, but it also confirms the extensive effort made by the Nazis to hide evidence of Treblinka 2's existence.
I won't be beaten by the fact that we didn't find in situ foundations here, and at the end of the day, we'll just keep looking.
Returning to the LiDAR, Caroline spots another, smaller depression that could be the site of the original gas chambers. She decides to dig 2 new trenches. In her mission to find the gas chambers at Treblinka, forensic archaeologist Caroline Sturdy Colls has been thwarted so far by the thoroughness of the Nazis' cover-up. She calls a meeting with aerial specialist Chris Going and Dutch historian Rob van der Laas to help her identify new targets to excavate.
Well, obviously pinpointing where the gas chambers were is very important for understanding the configuration of the death camp.
No aerial photographs of the camp have ever been found. Caroline only has maps drawn by a handful of camp survivors, and Commandant Franz Stangl as a guide. But the details on these maps conflict.
Some witnesses didn't draw those maps until quite a long time after the events had taken place. And all of these maps, when we look at them together, we can see that they're all different in terms of the configuration of the buildings, they're all different in terms of shape.
The fact that they differ one from another, are people saying, well, if you can't agree what the site looks like, and if you don't know where the gas chamber is, then maybe there wasn't a gas chamber or something like that.
If deniers' arguments hinge on this, if different witness testimonies differ about where these gas chambers were located, if we can find them, then we can answer questions that people have been asking for 70 years about this very, very important structures.
Vital.
Trenches 4 and 5 offered frustratingly little, but the LiDAR survey is pointing to a new area where the first gas chambers could be. The 2 new trenches, 6 and 7, may provide the evidence that Caroline needs.
We've got this area which is a visible earthwork. It was the biggest thing that showed up on the LiDAR survey. So what we wanted to do was to excavate this to try and establish what the cause of the earthwork is. We know there's something here, but we don't know what. Dark soil, isn't it, compared to...
We're still in the subtropic.
The LiDAR has revealed the foundation of a 22 by 15 meter building. Immediately, the team's luck changes.
Are there any coin experts?
And evidence of a human catastrophe begins to emerge.
We've got a very small comb here with quite a few complete teeth. Then in addition, we've got 2 other elements of what we think are combs. It is nice to find other objects which can tell a story, so we can trace perhaps where they were made and what part of Poland they came from and that sort of thing. So it opens up different avenues of research.
It'd have to be cleaned up.
I just found some more hair clips.
We've got a lot of very personal items. We've got pendants that were probably given to people maybe as presents or were bought for a special reason.
Pin for a brooch or something.
I think it's not gold, it's gilded.
That's really a heart-wrenching thing to think that you're holding something that meant so much to somebody. That is the trace that person left behind. That's all that's left of the people who were sent to Treblinka. So we've got a little piece of a button.
Like a brooch.
Yeah.
Jewellery and small personal items suggest that the people brought here had no idea they were coming to a death camp. Caroline wants to discover more about some of the people who died at Treblinka and where many of them came from. Warsaw. When the Germans invaded the city in 1939, a third was Jewish. Soon, 350,000 Jews found themselves trapped in a ghetto, covering just under 4 square kilometers.
What the Germans did after the occupation of Poland was create ghettos, which were places where faked normal city life could develop, in which tailors came in and barbers came in. So a whole new sort of economy was created inside these ghettos. But this was really a sort of prisoner system. They could live in there, but they couldn't get out.
In 1940, the Nazis sealed off the Warsaw Ghetto, while the leadership in Berlin considered what the final solution to the Jewish problem should be. The population grew to over 400,000 as people were brought in from surrounding villages and towns. Arriving in the ghetto was a shocking experience.
1/3 of a large city's population moving through the streets in an endless stream, crowding one another more and more as they converged. Pushcarts were piled high with household goods. The Germans delighted in overturning the carts and seeing us scrambling for our effects. There was appalling chaos. Children wandered, lost, their crying drowned in the tremendous hubbub of 500,000 uprooted people.
Exhaustion and starvation set in rapidly, and between 1940 and mid-1942, 83,000 Jews died from disease, hunger, and random killings. In July 1942, the Nazis began forcing Jews onto trains, promising a new life in the East. This pattern was repeated across the ghettos of Central Europe. Over the next 4 months, more than 722,000 Jews were deported to Treblinka. The scale of the operation is known only because of the efforts of a few eyewitnesses. Francis Jabecki, the station master at Treblinka village, was one of them.
There were old people, young people, men, women, children, and infants. On the wagons we could see chalk marks giving the number of people in the wagon: 120, 150, 180 and 200 people. You know the Germans with their methodical ways. We worked out later that the total number of people on the train must have been about 8,000 to 10,000.
It's believed that around 900,000 Jews were murdered at Treblinka too, of around 1.5 million killed during the Nazis' extermination of the Jews of Central Europe. Physical proof of the location or even existence of the gas chambers has never been found. Eyewitnesses and historians record that Treblinka too was a death camp. But even today, Holocaust deniers continue to claim, like the Nazis, that Treblinka too was a transit camp. 70 years after the camp's destruction, the need to uncover evidence of Treblinka's killing machine is as important as ever.
Come on.
Oh my God.
forensic archaeologist Caroline Sturdy Colls is looking for evidence of the gas chambers at Treblinka 2. As the team dig deeper, new proof of the crimes committed here is revealed.
Oh my gosh, you as well?
Yeah.
So, Kevin,
They don't fit.
you've got false teeth as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, Evo's just found some too. So what context number are you on now? Is that metal? I'm going to get you a box, Kevin, for those. I think we treat them like human remains, to be honest. I think, personally, I think essentially that's what they are.
I think it's silver, isn't it? Silver tooth.
If Caroline can find proof of the gas chambers, it will be the first forensic evidence for how 900,000 Jews were murdered. A location will also give her a fixed point from which to redraw the map of Treblinka and confirm the extermination process. The Nazi myth was that it was quick and efficient. Treblinka camp commandant Franz Stangel's first impressions were very different.
We could smell it, kilometers away. When we were about 15-20 minutes drive from Treblinka, we began to see corpses by the line. First just 2 or 3, then more. And as we drove into Treblinka station, there were what looked like hundreds of them, just lying there. They'd obviously been there for days in the heat. In the station was a train full of Jews, some dead, some alive. That too looked as if it had been there for days. Treblinka that day was the most awful thing I saw during all of the Third Reich.
Appalled by what he'd seen, Stangl set out to create a streamlined killing machine. Under his command, the camp could kill around 6,000 people within around 20 minutes, as long as the railways could maintain the supply. Jews arriving at Treblinka in packed trains from the ghettos were exhausted, dehydrated, and had no idea where they were. Samuel Willenberg was transported to the death camp in 1942 from the Opertuf ghetto. He was one of the very few people to survive Treblinka.
After travelling for about a day and a half, we arrived at Treblinka station in the afternoon. Jews, wearing blue armbands, opened the doors of the wagons and ordered us to get off quickly. We obeyed, and then they told us to walk along a platform through a gate. Then they divided us, men on the right and women on the left. Some boys ran up and gave us a piece of string to tie our shoes together. I recognized the boy who handed me mine. He was my friend, Alfred Berman. Alfred said, "Say that you're a construction worker." I did, and I avoided the gas chambers. I was the only survivor of the 6,000 people on my train.
SS officer Willy Mentz described his work at the camp during his trial after the war.
The transports were taken off. The women had to undress in huts and the men out in the open. The women were then led through a passageway to the gas chambers. On the way, they had to pass a hut where they had to hand in their jewelry and valuables. The SS police sometimes shot people during the journey. These people, and the ill and the frail, would be taken to the hospital area and stood or laid down at the edge of a grave. It was my job to shoot these people in the neck with a 9mm pistol.
Very few Jews saw the gas chambers and survived. Abraham Krupitsky was deported to the Treblinka extermination camp in August 1942. And his work as a slave laborer gave him access to the most secret section of the camp.
I was able to look through one of the 2 strong doors I saw a room which was not too large. It looked like a regular shower room with all the features of a public bathhouse. The walls of the room were covered with small white tiles. The floor was covered with orange terracotta tiles.
It's been a 70-year hunt to find evidence to prove what happened here. But new technology and Caroline's detective work could now be close to unlocking the secret the Nazis wanted no one to know.
Okay. Have a careful look for them, whatever it is.
Right.
Good that you noticed. It looks like there is some metal sticking out. And you see the metal pins.
Metal wire coming in.
Yeah. I do think it's part of some construction material, but okay.
The discovery of some strange cross-shaped objects is the first clue the team finds. It's a sign that they're onto something.
Caroline.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's something.
That's amazing.
And as you see, Star of David is on the tiles, which is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
A forensic archaeology team is on the brink of a major discovery.
Oh my God.
The previously unlocated gas chambers at Nazi death camp Treblinka 2. Dutch archaeologist Ivar has just uncovered an orange tile stamped with the Star of David.
Yeah, it was over here.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I have 4 tiles. 3 yellow ones and 1 red one. And these are small fragments. And this one is almost complete.
Okay.
And as you see, the Star of David is on the bottom,
side.
which is quite remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another symbol
You see the Star of David on this one also.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen those tiles?
No.
Tiles that fit with the idea that we are in the area of the gas chamber.
Yeah. What immediately springs to my mind when I see these is that witnesses who were allowed in the gas chamber area talked about the Star of David actually being on the outside of the gas chamber buildings to build up that illusion that people were going to somewhere that was safe.
That's
Fascinating.
That's quite something.
Treblinka eyewitnesses have identified tiles just like these. We know that the old gas chambers were deliberately designed to look like a Jewish ritual bathhouse. And Caroline has identified the same tiles in bathhouses elsewhere in Poland.
You realize on what spot you are, and they have seen things nobody has ever seen after the war. I mean, these are the silent witnesses.
The strange crosses found by the team have also been located elsewhere. They were used by the builders of the gas chambers at Majdanek, a camp which exists today, to bind plasterwork to the brick walls. For 70 years, everything known about Treblinka 2 has come from eyewitnesses, Nazi confessions, and a handful of documents. Now, for the first time, hard evidence has been found confirming the existence of the old gas chambers. The team now want to investigate further. The LiDAR survey confirms other research, which suggests that this is also where the gas chambers were located.
Well, there's certainly a change in material now that has been excavated in this trench.
Wow.
We may have the original ground surface now of when the camp was in operation, and that's why we're seeing very big structural stones now.
It's not possible.
Kevin hits ground level for 1943 and finds intact brick wall sections and foundations. These confirm this is the site of the gas chambers, the only brick buildings in the death camp.
That completely changes your perspective of this landscape and how the camp looked.
Caroline has confirmed the existence of gas chambers at Treblinka and also identified their location. Using this, she can now create a new plan of Treblinka 2, with all buildings correctly sited, and show exactly how the killing process worked. An orchestra greeted new arrivals as they disembarked at the platform. Within minutes, 3,000 to 4,000 passengers would have assembled in the square. Women and children would be divided from the men, taken to the barracks on the left and told to undress, leaving shoes and clothing. Inside, the women would have their hair cut off. Then, carrying soap, towel, valuables and documents, they'd leave for the bathhouse. Meanwhile, the men undressed in the square and left their clothes neatly in a pile. At this point, the shouting of the SS and guards would intensify, urging naked men, women and children to file past a ticket booth and hand in their valuables and documents. They were then marched for 120 meters down an alley, bordered by flowers and fir trees called the Road to Heaven. After a minute, they would see a handsome stone building with 5 wide concrete steps leading to large, ornate doors.
When the procession of the condemned approached the gas chambers, the people began to back away in terror. At that point, lashings of clubs were used. At each gas chamber, there were 5 or 6 Germans with their dogs. With clubs and lashes, they drove the people into the corridor of the gas chamber, and then into the chambers themselves. The guards would then turn on the engines. Through pipes, exhaust gas was fed into the chambers. The process of asphyxiation began. The guards would look into the chamber through special observation slits to see how the killing process was going. Gradually, the noise in the chamber subsided. After about 15 minutes, the motors were turned off. An unusual calm set in.
The bodies were removed from the chamber and taken on a rail cart to the cremation pits. Then the process began again with a new train load of passengers. The whole cycle would take no more than 60 minutes. In 1941, Himmler had instructed Globocnik to kill the Jews of occupied Poland. Within 24 months, more than 1.5 million Jews had been murdered. 200,000 at Sobibor, 500,000 at Belzec, and 900,000 at Treblinka. Odilo Globocnik, in his final report to Himmler, noted the great success of Operation Reinhard. The Jews had been exterminated, Treblinka destroyed, and all personal possessions, currency and valuables stolen from the murdered victims had been passed on to the Reich.
It feels like the Nazis have won if you don't bring to the surface that evidence. We've identified the location of the old gas chambers here, and in doing that, what we've done is prove that the Nazis couldn't hide all traces of their crimes.
Just a weird feeling. I mean, to crawl around on a place like that. Yeah, surely there's an emotional side on it. Yeah, it feels strange.
"18 months after Treblinka closed, the Third Reich was defeated and Hitler committed suicide. Globocnik, who had organized Operation Reinhard, was captured in Austria, but took his own life before he could be interrogated. Franz Stangl, the architect of efficient, systematic killing at Treblinka, escaped to Brazil. He was tracked down by Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal and charged with the murder of 900,000 people. Found guilty, he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1970. He died in prison less than a year later. Treblinka was at the apex of Hitler's system of extermination camps. No other death camp was able to murder so many people in such a short space of time. 10 small chambers turned out to be all that was needed to destroy the 1,000-year-old civilization and population of Central Europe's Jews.
What became apparent is simply the scale of what we found. We'll probably never be able to identify individuals who were killed here. And so these objects really are our only window into the stories of those individuals who were sent here. And it's a horrible thing to think that all you leave behind on Earth, to be found 70 years later is a pendant or a hair clip or an earring. And it just makes you think, if the whole Earth of Treblinka was opened up, what kind of hell you'd be looking into.